Hi guys, this is Jared, and today's date is December the 18th, 2013, and I'm going to be reading today one of my favorite poems by another favorite poet. And today's poet is Mr. T.S. Eliot. That's Mr. Thomas Stearns Eliot, and I'm sure as a poet, you poets out there have heard of T.S. Eliot. To give you a little background on Mr. Eliot, he was born in St. Louis, Missouri in 1888. When he graduated high school at 18, he went to Harvard. Very, very, very prestigious man, this Mr. Eliot was. And following graduation, he went abroad and he taught boys in a school called at a place called Lloyd's Banks. Excuse me. It was a boys' school. He did that I think for 8 years, I believe. And let's see. In 1925 is when he first got into publishing. Let's see what else about him. He was, like I said, he was a very prestigious individual. He wrote a lot of interesting poetry, a lot of complicated poetry, and well, maybe it might be complicated, maybe an unfair word. Let's just say that the late Mr. Stearns, wrote poetry by using all sorts of text and sources and terms. Foreign terms, where he would, I think it was probably his intention, and this is just my opinion, for his readers to do more research to understand his poetry in full. He is bestowed the Order of Merit by King George VI in the UK. He was also given the Nobel Prize for Literature. And even though, and he was, I think he was more English than American, and then he, of course, became a citizen of the UK. So that pretty much says a lot. He wrote some outstandingly wonderful poetry. But one of the most interesting things one of the interesting things about T.S. Eliot, whenever he's mentioned, or when someone else mentions, okay, let me calm myself. Whenever T.S. Eliot is mentioned, I always think about some things I've read about him from major critics, such as he was considered like a copycat sort of poet, where he took different texts, different sources, and kind of mutated them a little bit. Something as simple as nursery rhymes, he would kind of twist them and make them his own, and kind of insinuate or inject them in some way in his poetry, and I think that's made him a more interesting poet. A lot of people say that he's probably one of the last of the great poets of the 20th century, but I beg to differ. I mean, he was a great poet, but there are a lot of poets today who are phenomenal. With that being said, I'm going to stop going over Mr. T.S. Eliot's resume, as I so sloppily did it. And I'm going to read my favorite poem by him. Today's poem I'm going to read is entitled Whispers of Immortality by T.S. Eliot. Webster was much possessed by death, and saw the skull beneath the skin, and breastless creatures underground leaned backward with a lipless grin. Daffodil bulbs instead of balls stared from the sockets of the eyes. He knew that thought clings round dead limbs, tightening its lust and luxuries. Donne, I suppose, was another who found no substitute for sense, to seize and clutch and penetrate, expert beyond experience. He knew the anguish of the marrow, the ague of the skeleton. No contact possible to flesh allayed the fever of the bone. Grishkin is nice. Her Russian eye is underlined for emphasis. Uncorseted, her friendly bust gives promise of pneumatic bliss. The couched Brazilian jaguar compels the scampering marmoset with subtle effluence of cat. Grishkin has a maisonette. The sleek Brazilian jaguar does not in its arboreal gloom distill so rank a feline smell as Grishkin in a drawing room. And even the abstract entities circumambulate her charm. But our lot crawls between dry ribs, ticky by metaphysics form. Thank you guys for listening. If you like this, please comment. And again, Please, I love it when you guys comment and give your opinions. And I like feedback. So if you have any questions about any poems I've written, or even this one, if you want to know more about T.S. Eliot, of course, Google. And, or if you want me to talk about it more, I can do that as well. But again, I'm so glad you guys, took the time to listen to me recite one of my favorite poets. And I will see you guys next week. Thank you.